Hello and welcome again. I'm Robert Sass. This video is a part of the Aldsudu channel, and it's on modern heathenry, modern Asatru. And I feel that modern heathenry and modern Asatru, whether it's old ways heathenry or new ways heathenry, that both have a very harsh reality. And I'm going to discuss that in this video. So the outline of this video, I'm going to discuss six things. Modern Asatru has issues with racism and bigotry, which is totally unacceptable. And it's part of the harsh reality of modern heathenry. Modern Asatru attracts too many undesirable people. I guess I could combine that with point number one, but we have people who are undesirable that are also not racists or bigots. Three, many are turning into 501c3 full-blown religious organizations, and they're starting to organize like monotheistic religions. 4, religion in general is dying, and the world is becoming more and more secular. 5, infighting. Asatru clobbering Asatru. Heathens clobbering heathens. Heathenry is 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of the entire population, and yet there's so much time of heathens clobbering heathens. It's not going to help us grow. Misinformation. I've discussed this before. I'm going to touch on it very briefly in this video, but it is one of the harsh realities. If people who are looking for a historical pre-Christian religion, 99% of Asatru is not that. So let's talk about the 6 issues, the harsh reality of modern heathenry and modern Asatru. Hey, I didn't write this in my slide, but if you were to do a Google search or a Bing search or a Yahoo search, whatever search engine you desire, on Amazon with Silk or whatever iTunes uses, if you do a search on Asatru, you're going to find lots of websites that discuss racism and bigotry and people fighting over it. And if you are new to Asatru, you're probably going to be confused thinking, oh my goodness, are these guys a bunch of racists or a bunch of anti-racists? Holy cow. Racism is like the underlying issue in modern Asatru and modern heathenry. It's the overwhelming issue that is most talked about. And hey, all racism, all bigotry, Nazism, it is all wrong. And I shouldn't have to say that in this modern world, but I do. Sadly, it's a reality. The first Asatru group in the United States, if we were to go to their website today, it says, Asatru is an expression of the native pre-Christian spirituality of Europe. More specifically, it is a religion by which the ethnic European folk have traditionally related to the divine and the world around them. That is a lie. Here's a map of Europe. We had Greek pagans, Roman pagans, which were very much like the Greeks. We had Basque pagans, Celtic pagans, Germanic pagans, which eventually inhabited Iceland. Britain was a mixture of Romano-Brits, Romans, and Celts that later had an influx of Germanic peoples. But nonetheless, Slavic paganism, Balkan and Baltic paganism, Sami paganism, Celtic paganism, these are all different paganism with different gods and goddesses, different holy days, different ways of thought, different cultures. Today, Europe has different languages, French, German, Italian, Greek, English. You know, there's multiple languages today. There's multiple cultures today in Europe. For any Asatru site to say that Asatru is the pre-Christian native religion of all of Europe is lying to you. They're trying to say that Europe is white and Asatru is for white people, which obviously many in Asatru agree with and many disagree with. Nonetheless, the harsh reality is that Germanic peoples, the Scandinavians were Germanic peoples. They venerated the Aesir, which is why Odin has poetry in northern Germany, even northern Poland today, even central Germany, and the Scandinavian countries. These are Germanic peoples who spoke Germanic languages, and these people were the people in Europe who venerated the Aesir. Asatru, meaning true to the Aesir, was not the religion of pre-Christian Europe. Again, Slavic paganism, Celtic paganism, Basque paganism, Greek paganism. There were many others. Europe has been multicultural for thousands of years. To go back to Proto-Indo-European times is a long time ago. A long, long, long time ago. So Viking religion, in short, was Germanic religion. And heathenry was crushed by Christianity. Many Germanic peoples were converted by force. We've discussed the Saxons being converted in the 33-year Saxon Wars, where the Franks were hell-bent. They were either going to commit genocide or get the Saxons in the church. And the Saxons ended up in the church. And there was still genocide to do that. But then some Germanic peoples did freely accept Christianity. So there was a mixture of force. There was a mixture of free conversion. However, if we're going to associate one religion with Europe, I don't understand why many Asatru argue that it's, Asatru. Because if Europe is associated with one religion today, it's Christianity. Europe and the European peoples who were the ones to colonize America, it was called New England for a bit, for example. There was new everything, but the Christians of Europe colonized North America. And North America and Europe today are called the Christian West. So heathenry was completely crushed and has been gone for 1,000 years or longer. Though the Swedes were still heathens in the early 1100s, they were the last really to hold out. I guess you can say Baltic heathens in Lithuania. They were more Slavic in their approaches than Germanic, but they held out the longest. But in reality, the pagan groups were crushed by the monotheistic religions and they ceased to exist. The monotheistic religions have continued. So modern heathenry is a reconstructed religion, whether people like it or not. Heathenry was wiped out. It ceased to exist. And people don't like me saying that, oh, it survived underground. No, it did not. It was gone for a long time. And if you were caught being heathen, you were most likely killed by the church. The church had many witch hunts and were scared to death of heathen practices and heathenry. And we have too many examples, too many inquisitions over history to prove that. Now, modern heathenry attracts too many lowlifes. Now, look, I'm not saying that everyone in heathenry is a lowlife. There are honorable people today. I hope I'm one of them. But we have many just running into the TV fad. And they come into the Vikings TV show, the Last Kingdom TV show, Vikings Valhalla, the movies that are out. Look, these movies show heathens as totally dishonorable people. They make oaths and then they break them. They're turning on family left and right. It's like soap operas. The things that drive me crazy aren't even the historical accuracies like the clothing or just the flat-out changing of history. It's the complete and total lack of honor. When heathen society was set up to be about honor, there is almost no honor in the Vikings TV show or the Last Kingdom. Everyone's betraying everyone all the time. Heathens, they lived a culture of honor. You were to live honorably, and your behavior reflected upon your entire family and your clan. So you were expected to behave in an honorable way. The racists and the overly eccentric are a part of the harsh reality of modern heathenry. And I'm not saying that, we should kick people out, but since we are a reconstructed religion, we should have standards. We've already shared that there's a group of heathens that want to accept all people, and there are a group of heathens that want to accept only white people. But while I'm certainly on the side of the fence that racism and Nazism and bigotry needs to be banned and suck, the overriding issue is heathenry today has low standards. It must have high standards. We should not be allowing people that behave poorly in it. Because, as I'm about to get to, the world is very secular. And look at the child rape scandal in the Catholic Church. Look what that did to the Catholic Church and world opinion of the Catholic Church. Again, if you Google Asatru, are you going to find good things written about it? Are you going to find that it's a people of honor, or are the people behaving as poorly as they do in the television shows? There should be good behavior. And is modern heathenry and modern Asatru making people better people? I don't think the answer is yes, sadly. Christianity is not making Christians better people. Monotheism in general seems to be driving people mad. And, do not murder is a relatively loose statement in monotheism, because usually the God is, or the religion is behind all the murder going on. What we do is what we believe. We are our deeds, and we need to have standards, and we should not allow people who behave badly even in. And we have to invite honorable people. Racism, bigotry has no place. And I'm not saying that eccentric people or eclectic people shouldn't be allowed in, but, Christianity, monotheism is a serious religion. A lot of people get mad when I say stuff like this, but, modern Asatru, whether they do the new ways, like a solstice Yule or an equinox ostara, they have common belief and common practices. They just say they don't, but they clearly do. Okay, they totally do. If you don't want common practices, common gods, common belief, Aldsudu, Forn said, the words in the sagas and the Eddas for the historical religion, Forn said, the old ways, old customs, that means there were common customs, common beliefs, common practices. That was the word that heathens had for what they believed. A lot of people say, oh, I'm against common belief, but that's not true. They're very for common belief, but we have eccentric. So here's Dr. Andreas Zautner. What does he say? He says, if we browse the internet for holy days of the Germanic people, we mainly find, let me go backwards. If we browse the internet for holy days of the Germanic people, we mainly find pages presenting an octopartate, or an eight-spoke wheel of the year based on solstices and equinoxes, and 4 feasts in between. This year cycle has absolutely no historical basis, although it's very popular in neo-pagan circles, especially within Wicca and eclectic Asatru. There's no verified evidence for such a year cycle as a basis for the seasonal activities. The same is true for the Celtic feasts within the year, because the Gauls too use a lunar solar calendar, as we know for the examples of the Caligni and the Viards de Heria. If one has internalized such ideals, as in the 8-spoke wheel of the year, one should get rid of them immediately. Dr. Andreas Zautner, The Lunar Solar Calendar of the Germanic Peoples, that's clearly what his book says. And scholars don't have a high opinion of modern heathens. I'm going to get to it soon, but that's another harsh reality of heathenry. Our scholars aren't even heathens. Dr. Jackson Crawford, for example, I believe in some of the things that he says are right and some are not. He's a great linguist. He's not really great at understanding historical religion. And he has a Patreon account, and he makes his living off Asatru and people who follow Asatru. But he doesn't even keep Asatru himself. It's a harsh reality. Now, Asatru organizations are going 501c3. They're organizing like monotheistic religions. I'm a CPA. I know as a certified public accountant what a 501c3 is. And I know the IRS doesn't like them. And the fact of the matter is it's most likely that profit organizations are going to be taxed in the future. But nonetheless, these orgs often have fraud and money problems. What can I say? I'm not for not-for-profit and organizing like monotheistic religions. Aldsudu, the organization I founded, Aldsudu, an Old Saxon word meaning the old customs. We're just a light org. And what do I mean by light org? We're a networking group, and we do research and education. Our goal is to research the historical sources and the archaeological evidence. Archaeological reports are posted for free most of the time online. I did study archaeology as part of my master's degree, so I do have a degree in it and I know some things about it. Though my archaeological background is in the Levant, which is very different in dry heat than the Germanic muddy, cold winters. Um, Two different areas, but I still have some basic knowledge of archaeology because I studied it as part of my master's degree. But nonetheless, it's important that people of like mind do network and that we do have some research and education. Because as I come to the next quote, well, I've already discussed this. Because there's no scholasticism in Asatru, that's why they have the orthodoxy and the orthopraxy of Wicca. Now, people say, no, there's no common belief in Asatru and there's no common practices in Asatru. But since I was the first person to put out videos and websites, especially the websites, about Yule, historical pre-Christian Yule being on a full moon well after the solstice, and that Winter Nights was on a full moon and Sigilo was on a full moon, I was crucified by modern Asatru organizations who were so pissed that I would attack their common behavior. My goal wasn't to attack the common behavior and their commonly accepted behavior or their orthodoxy and their orthopraxy. It was, hey, we're claiming we do the old way, so what do the Eddas and the sagas and the historical sources say? What does the literary evidence say? What do the rune staffs and the calendar rods that we found in the ground, when do they say Yule was? Because they all stated it was on a full moon in mid to late January, well after the solstice. So the harsh reality of modern Asatru is that it is so tiny. It's 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of the entire population. And 99% of those in Asatru are following new ways and involved in the spreading of misinformation. Modern Christians don't read the Bibles. Almost zero Asatruar ever read one page of an Edda or a saga. They have no idea. They get their informations off websites that have incorrect misinformation on them, and they take beliefs right off the television shows, which are historically inaccurate in so many ways. As Dr. Zautner says, and that's why scholars don't have a high opinion of Asatru, is because the ground and the historical sources say one thing, and the modern religion, which is one being reconstructed only by the few that are actually trying to reconstruct it, because Asatru really isn't. They just claim that they do the old ways when they're not. The Asatru organizations are doing completely Wiccan and Christian ways, and they're claiming that these are old historical pre-Christian ways. And by the way, the heathens did have common practice, like at Uppsala. The people who went to Uppsala had common beliefs. They believed in the same gods. They believed in the same rituals. They accepted and followed the belief that was being taught in Uppsala. There absolutely was a priesthood there, and there was common practice. I mean, all the Germanic tribes, those in Scandinavian Germany, they celebrated Yule. They all did. Okay, Yule is not just a Viking-only word. All the Germanic tribes believed in a one-eyed Odin with an eight-legged horse, with a spear, with a Thor that had a hammer. They had many similarities, far more similarities than they had differences. They all kept bloat. They all did the three major bloats of the year. And there was common agreement and common practice. If you're against common belief in common gods and you're against common practices and common rituals, then religion in general is not a place for you, because there's common rituals in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and various forms of paganism and heathenry. They all have commonly accepted deities, commonly accepted rituals, commonly accepted holy days. If these sorts of things aren't for you, then you should leave religion altogether. Now, the world's becoming more and more secular. Religion in general is dying. So, I did, as part of my master's program, I was getting a degree in biblical archaeology. And in this graduate program, we were taught in 1995 that only 22% of America goes to church semi-weekly. And something tells me over the last 30 years, 27 years, whatever, that number has gotten a bit smaller. When America was founded, it was founded on religious freedom. And almost 100% of America went to church on Sunday in the past. And blue laws were everywhere. And if you don't know what a blue law is, that's more evidence that the world is becoming more and more and more secular. Religion in general is dying. And, there are far more Christmas and Easter Christians than there are that go to church every Sunday. Again, less than 1/4 of America goes to church every Sunday. We are far less religious than we've ever been, and yet America is the largest country by population in the Christian West. So another sad, harsh reality is that Asatru kill clobber Asatru. Whether it's the Universalist clobbering the Folkish or the Folkish clobbering the Universalist, heathens clobber each other too. I did receive some death threats in 2020. I was the first heathen really to come out teaching that Yule was on a full moon well after the solstice. I got clobbered for that. I was the first, and even though scholars were teaching it for a while, the lunar solar calendar, had holy days and full moons. And, when I taught that, I got clobbered. And now a lot of people, there's more of an emphasis on old ways in heathenry than ever. And I think I'm a large part of that, and I'm proud of that. But at the same point in time, while even at times I haven't been perfect in my behavior, I've been very good in my behavior, and I don't partake anymore in online arguments. But I made a post about some of my frustrations on social media, similar to this video, the harsh realities of modern Asatru. And it's a problem if someone new watches a TV show and they decide that they want to explore Viking religion. One of the first websites they're going to come across really fast is, racism and Asatru. And it's not good. And here's a good example, because, the racists are bad, but the social justice warriors need to fight for their social justice causes in an honorable manner. So I mentioned up here that, hey, I haven't had any death threats in 2021 nor 2022 yet, but I got plenty in 2020. It was a rough year. The pandemic made people go apeshit or something. But, this person responded back to me saying, I call bullshit on this statement. Declaration 127 is about giving no frith to racist groups. So basically what this person argued, and if I were to show all the other screenshots, he was basically saying, and even when I came back, I'm like, because my response to him was, so wait a minute. You're saying Declaration 127 is about giving no peace to racist groups, so your goal is to criminally harass racists. Now listen, racism has no place, but you shouldn't be criminally harassing anyone. Okay? Harsh reality. You have the social justice warriors behaving like complete and utter shit, excuse my French, and you have the racists behaving like complete and total shit. It's bad. And this person continues, if you're getting attention from people who signed Declaration 127, then you need to reevaluate your position. So basically, if I'm getting criminally harassed, then obviously I didn't sign Declaration 127. So I'm the problem. Okay, I'm Asatru, and I've signed Declaration 127. I run 2 Norse pagan groups, both of which support Declaration 127. If you have a problem with Declaration 127, then you are racist and folkish, and you're a Nazi. Look, I'm against Nazis, but to be a Nazi, you have to ascribe to the ideas in the book Mein Kampf. And folkish people do not typically subscribe to Nazi theology. They subscribe to like the earlier screenshot that Asatru is a religion for white people and for European people only. There's a difference. Not all racists are Nazis, So this statement, if you don't sign it, then you're racist and you're folkish and you're a Nazi is like, it's sad what the world is coming to. I'm an instrumentalist. I play saxophone, and I'm frustrated because Amazon and YouTube has taken my instrumental music and put a parental advisory lyrics on them. Is it because I have pagan titles for some of my songs? Or is it because my name, because I go by Bob Sass as the saxophonist, though my name is Robert Sass. But do they assume that I'm saying Bob's ass? Is that it? I was born with the name Robert Sass, and I was called Sasshole and Bob's Ass and Kit's Ass and all these other names in school. So trust me, I didn't just choose this name because it brought me a lot of ridicule. But yet I love my last name, and I'm proud of it. It is the old Saxon word that means Saxon. Sass, Saxon, Sassone, Saxons. I'm proud of where I came from. I'm not proud of some of my family that stayed in Germany and did poor things, and I'm very against and very anti what some in my family, but thank goodness my grandpa left and my grandma left and came to America in the beginning stages of the Reich and said, enough, we don't like it, we're going to find a better place. And I'm proud of that. So I'm very anti-Nazi, and I'm very pro a positive German country contributing well to the world, which I think they are doing great today. But nonetheless, you know, I can't begin to say how much I've seen heathens clobbering heathens in Asatru or clobbering Asatru. You know, again, we're 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of the population. And if Asatru is going to continue killing itself, and listen, this isn't even a new ways versus old ways discussion. If old ways heathens are going to clobber old ways heathens, well, they're about 1% of 1% of 1% of the entire neo-pagan group. Because the vast majority of people in paganism today will never open an Edda, never open a saga. They haven't read a paragraph. Like if they read anything, they read Wikipedia or poorly done Asatru websites. They don't research at all. You know, people leave monotheism saying, I'm done following priests off cliffs, and they run right into Asatru and they just follow Asatru off cliffs. And they say that they're not, but they clearly are. You know, religion is not known for its ability to have people use common sense and to think. And, you know, I left Christianity in graduate school. I converted to Judaism, and then quite quickly thereafter, I became an atheist. And then I came into heathenry, and I've been in heathenry for a while now. But, you know, in my agnostic atheist days, one thing that stuck in my mind, there was one person in particular in one of the groups saying, you know, faith is intellectual bankruptcy. If the only way you can accept something is by faith and faith alone, then you admit that there's no rational two legs for your beliefs to stand on. Again, the world's becoming more secular, and we need to behave better if we're going to get any traction. And maybe we'll never get any traction. So I've discussed misinformation already, but let me state there are very, very, very few heathen scholars out there. Dr. Jackson Crawford is not a heathen. I think he's a fantastic linguist. I do not think he understands heathenry historically, even in the sources at times. But keep in mind, he's making his living off people who are heathens. He has a Patreon account. Okay, my YouTube is free. I don't have a Patreon account. I don't ask for money. I pay for my blog site. I don't ask for money. I don't sell anything. I actually do have a couple books for sale, but they're also for free in academia.edu, so don't buy them. Go get them for free. I only sell them to reach people that are never going to find them on Facebook or on academia.edu, and I make very, very, very little. But I'm actually a heathen. But there are very few heathen scholars today, and I'm not even going to say I'm a heathen scholar because I don't have a PhD in religious studies or in heathen studies. Dr. Scott T. Shell is a member of my local community. He's on staff at Northwestern University in Evanston, just north of Chicago. He studied under Dr. Jackson Crawford, and he has a PhD in linguistics, Germanic linguistics. He has bachelor's and master's degrees in the field. He at times is not treated well either. You know, the few heathen scholars that we do have, heathens treat them poorly. It's not a good thing, and it's a harsh reality. I went to the wrong slide. My apologies. To conclude this video, I'm going to read the mission statement of Aldsudu. In view of the fact that many modern pagan religions claim to be revivals of ancient Germanic religions and assert that their own practices are historically accurate or representative of ancient practices while ignoring the historical record regarding such practices, Old Saxon heathens, Aldsudu, adopted this mission statement. The statement is solely intended to help distinguish historical Aldsudu, or Old Saxon heathenry, from those modern pagan religions such as Asatru or Wicca that claim to be old historical ways that are clearly not. Asatru and Wicca are fine traditions, however, they do not use the historically attested practices of Germanic heathen religions and deviate substantially from them in both practice and belief. While we do not mean to insult or discount the validity of Asatru or Wicca, we absolutely deny any claims of these groups as accurately reflecting historical heathen Germanic belief and practice through the surviving historical sources. Some Aldsudu, Old Saxon heathen groups and or individuals may be stricter in their observance of these principles than others. Historical Old Saxon heathenry, Aldsudu, as well as any form of historical Germanic heathenry, can be defined by a commitment to the following points. Modern observance of Aldsudu should comply with historically attested practices and historical sources. Aldsudu practitioners believe in the gods attributed to the Saxons. Aldsudu is a faith, not a reenactment group. Aldsudu is the Old Saxon cognate of the Old Norse foreign sed, and there's various spellings. Aldsudu heathens and Saxon Hoffs reject the Wiccan Wheel of the Year as a model in which the dates of the sacred rituals should be set. Aldsudu ceremonies are dated in accordance with the cycles of the moon, as was done in historical pre-Christian heathen times, rather than by solstices and equinoxes of the sun. This follows the historical sources on dating of the heathen holy days. Historical Germanic heathens, including Saxon heathens, followed a lunisolar calendar. The Old Saxon word for moon and month are related words, as the Old Saxon word month, manuth, means cycle of the moon. Saxon Weihnacht, the word Weihnachten for Christmas in modern German. So Saxon Weihnacht holidays are winter full moon, known as Norse winter nights to the Scandinavians, Yule, Norse Yule or Yule, and Summerblot, Norse Sigurblot, which occur on full moons respectively. So winter full moon occurs on the full moon of winter moon, winter manuth. 3 full moons after winter full moon is Yule, also called midwinter, which begins on the full moon of Yule moon, Yule manuth. 3 full moons after Yule is Sigurblot on the full moon of summer moon, which is Sumar manuth. Aldsudu communities observe symbol in accordance with historically attested examples of symbol rather than the Wiccan Sabbat, Celtic circle-style symbol often used among modern pagan groups. Aldsudu communities perform blot in accordance with historically attested practices to the best of their ability. Blot has an important place in modern practice, and Saxon heathens strive to observe it inasmuch as it is practical to do so under all relevant circumstances. Aldsudu individuals and Saxon Hoffs reject all forms of bigotry and racism. Can't state that enough. Aldsudu is against all forms of bigotry and racism. And no, we have not signed Declaration 127, though we are appalled with the AFA's racism. But we don't want to sign it because Aldsudu is not a part of Asatru. We have divorced it. So racism is an Asatru problem, but not an Aldsudu problem. Aldsudu heathens and Saxon Hoffs share a commitment to academic honesty and integrity. Aldsudu is a networking and education website and light organization. Aldsudu also has a Facebook page for members to ask questions, network, and interact. Aldsudu in Old Saxon means old ways and is the historically attested word the Saxons used to describe their heathenry. Come visit us at www.aldsudu.com. See our blog at aldsudu.com/blog. Join us on Facebook group Aldsudu, Saxon Heathenry, and of course, like and subscribe. Thank you.